Hi, my name is Sola, and you're listening to Heart to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. Welcome back to the podcast. We're halfway through season 17 as we've passed the episode 5 mark. I can't believe that we only have 5 episodes left. I feel like the season could have used more episodes, obviously. With everything that's happening, there's like a new storyline they could do, and feels like we're kind of rushing through everyone's arc this season. But anyways, before I get ahead of myself, let's read some of your comments. Yo Dudette 79 said, I really enjoyed the episode. Like most, I thought it would be Aunt Evelyn's passing. I think having it be Dan is a lot more interesting. I like the small glimpse into her life with Dan, and Lisa's reaction was very true to life, especially not wanting to confide in Jack because of his negative feelings towards Dan. Loved all the Jesus scenes. For Lou, I thought it was interesting to see that her insomnia is mentioned pretty much every episode. This makes me very curious about her upcoming flashback moments. I thought her scenes with Jessica felt a bit like a recycled storyline, but loved her scenes with Rick. They make good friends despite everything. For Katie, loved that she bought a dirt bike, but not that she sold her mother's gift to get it. Loved all her scenes with Tim, especially when she threw him the bike cover with such force, lol. For Amy, loved that she had trouble with Blue. I think it's one of the rare times that you see her getting bruised from a fall. I just wish that it took longer for her to conquer him. Love that she spoke to Lisa about Dan, even though it's a small scene. I appreciate all Amy and other people's scenes as they are so rare, lol. What a pleasure to see Amber doing most of her stunts. She looked awesome. As for Michelle, the director, I am not sure I loved all the music choices for her action scenes, but loved the camera work, especially when Amy was having a hard time with Blue and she would slide the camera away from her. Very interesting choice. I feel there are so many storylines in every episode this year, as though dropping from 15 to 10 episodes, everything feels rushed. Then Dip said, I cannot get the image out of my imagination of Lou walking past that storefront and seeing her gift to Katie sitting under the We Buy Jewelry sign. What a slap in the face that would be. No wonder Lou feels like she always has to be perfect. If Lou doesn't give the answer Katie wants immediately, Katie does not give her mother a single chance to reflect on it and change her mind. She just goes full speed ahead behind her mother's back. I thought that Tim was battling 1,000 in this episode. He was the only one to recognize how much Lou was struggling, and it was nice to see someone protective of her for a change. He interceded on Lou's behalf with Jessica. He handled the dirt bike situation well, gaining Katie's trust while also insisting that Katie would have to tell her mom the truth. I also think Tim is right to still be leery of Nathan. I enjoyed the gradual process of Jack getting Lisa to open up to him about her feelings. Also, always a highlight for me are any scenes involving Lou and Rick. This episode felt like it should have ended with the phrase, to be continued. What will happen at the competition? Where will Jack and Lisa go after the funeral? Is Lou going to find out about the dirt bike before Katie tells her? Then Sharon said, another excellent episode, which is setting up for the next episode. Some different camera work showing off the horse work and of course the beautiful scenery. Lisa tugged at my heart with Jack by the bond. So good to see Jack be there for Lisa. Katie doing what Georgie used to do, completely ignore Lou and do what she wants to do. Selling the necklace was wrong. Hate to see what Lou's reaction is going to be. She's going to be so hurt and upset. Did like seeing Tim working with Katie. About time. Okay, I don't understand Jessica. This woman has millions, sold her shares in her business, a few million there, selling her New York apartment, definitely millions there, but she needs a bank loan? Love seeing Rick, exactly what I said a while ago. Lou had Rick to work with. Who is Rick going to have? Losing the election is a reason, but it's not the reason for Lou's anxiety. We will find out more in the next episodes. We'll say that I'm not liking Jessica lately, especially how she jumps at Lou before finding out the reasons. Nathan, at the moment, I like him, but we'll decide in the next couple of episodes. The bond Jack has with Lou is great to watch. Did like the cutaway when Jack was climbing over the fence. LOL. We all knew that Amy would be able to work with Blue, but it was still good to see them coming together. Really looking forward to next week's episode. Then WABE Cowgirl said, I liked it. It was very good. I enjoyed Lisa and Jack. Then Maddie, she's a Heartland fan, said, I honestly thought that Lisa's storyline would have been different. I loved seeing Jack be there for her and give up something that he was looking forward to, going to support his wife. He chose the more important thing. Then Atoll Horses said, this was a good episode. Let me start off by saying it wasn't even a thought in my mind that Dan would be the person that passed. At least not until like 2 days ago when someone posted a fanfic about it, but I was still thinking it was unlikely, mostly because the synopsis said loved one. Then I saw the previously on and I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely Dan. I never liked Dan as a person, but I will miss seeing him on the show just because of the chaos he would bring and scenes we would get with Jack and with Lisa. I mean, season 11, episode 11 was gold. It was so funny. So good job, Heartland. You actually surprised me for once. Having Val tell Lisa in a small potatoes reference was funny. But on the more serious side, I think this was a good storyline. It was understandable that Lisa had conflicting emotions over this, and I bet a decent amount of people experienced this, so I'm glad to see it portrayed. I mean, she did marry him and love him at one point, and he was also a big part of her business and her life after they divorced, so I could see why she was conflicted. Jessica Steen also played it wonderfully. The bond scene was great, and Jack was sweet listening to her talk nicely about Dan. I was interested to hear her talk about her good times with Dan, as I'm not sure we've ever heard much about them, besides they got divorced. I did like the horse storyline as well, but I wish we saw more Nathan as he intrigues me. The camera work on the first working scene with Jack and Blue was really good. I will say, I wish Amy struggled more with it, as it seemed based on interviews with Amber that this was going to be a bigger issue than we just saw, but I guess we have next episode too. Also, I was very impressed that Amber actually doing the stunts at the end. I mean, it makes sense that she can, it's just rare that they allowed them to do it. It also seems they are really embracing the country side of things this season, as there's been more country songs than I ever remember them using. Lou's storyline, you can tell, is building to a bigger episode later, especially with the insomnia plug. Also, it was interesting to hear that she would jump horses at full speed with high jumps, as I'm not sure we've ever heard specific of what she used to do with horses before Tim's accident. I love that we got to see Rick as mayor using the desk. What a switch of roles. I am glad they are still friends and that they bonded over wine and helped each other out. We got a Carl and Maddie mention, which is good, even if Carl did kick him out. Something I will say though is that when Jessica got mad that Lou was encroaching on the creative side, she really wasn't. She got the grant as part of the business side of things and was explaining to Jessica how that would work if they accepted it. So was kind of confused by that. Katie's storyline was interesting too, because I'm enjoying the non-horse interest she has. Tim's involvement in that was so funny. Him finding out about it, promising not to tell, getting offended that Katie only thinks Jack has knowledge of bikes, and when Tim lied to Lou when she drove up and him saluting all made me laugh. Good episode all around, and next week should be interesting. Then Wendy Harland edit said, I wish they went more in depth with the history between Lisa and Dan, the positive, and since she didn't like Dan that much anymore, what went wrong between them. I would love to know more about her past. I am so glad to see Rick again. I was afraid Lou had given him the cold shoulder. Hope to see him again. Sad to hear he has troubles with his relationship. Sleeping in the office doesn't sound good, especially while having a baby. I'm excited for Katie. Love seeing Tim helping her. Oh, and Jessica and Tim work so great together. The portrayal of the relationship feels so natural. Then Ultimate Final Girl said, I love Nathan. Then No Context Heartland said, Michelle did an amazing job directing, as it is to be expected. She always helps pull out some really lovely performances. Jessica Steen made me cry. But then the moments with Katie and Tim were so light and lovely, and it made me so happy to see Rick and Lou's friendship back on our screens. I thought the episode as a whole did a good job setting up some storylines that didn't all get resolved in the single episode. There's definitely room for them to carry on into the rest of the season, but we'll still manage to have good arcs for individual characters slash bearings in this episode, and I love that. And then Stephanie said, I really enjoyed this week's episode. I'll kick off this review with Katie's storyline. I'm really enjoying seeing Katie develop interest in things other than just horses, and that she's been having more of a role lately. And we get to see her own storylines. It was fun seeing Tim and Katie working on the bike together and how they were hiding it from Lou. I hope to see more scenes between the two of them. It's fun watching the dirt bike scenes, as that's something pretty different than what we've used to on Heartland. Although I'm a little bit annoyed that Katie sold a necklace that her mom gifted her for a dirt bike. I have a feeling this will come up later. Jessica Steen really knocked it out of the park this episode. I mean, are we surprised? I really did not see coming that Dan was the one that passed away until I saw the previously on and Dan came on the screen. Normally, I'm able to guess things right away, but the writers actually surprised me. Well done. I really felt for Lisa though. Can't imagine the mixed emotions she was feeling. On one hand, they obviously didn't work out and grew apart, and he clearly became quite selfish and full of himself. But at the same time, they had good memories. It was interesting to hear Lisa talking well of Dan, since we didn't hear that very often. I'm glad Jack was there for her and got her to talk things out by the bond. That was a really sweet moment between the two of them. Looks like Lou's storyline and her sleepless nights are going to continue into future episodes. I'm looking forward to digging into that more and finding out what's going on. I hope they don't just brush it over when it eventually comes up, but the storyline will have a satisfying ending. I really enjoyed seeing Rick and Lou having scenes together. I've missed the sass, so it was definitely nice having him in the episode. I love that they've worked things out and are there for each other when life gets hard. Definitely hope we get more scenes of them. Amy working with Plu was interesting. I really liked the music they chose when they were working with him. It's cool that Amber did her own stunts at the end. We rarely get to see that. Again, not a whole lot of Nathan Price. I really want to see more storylines with him instead of a 2-second interaction. His character seems interesting, and it would be a shame if we don't get to learn much about him. Jessica being upset with Lou for a small matter, then making up, kind of felt like a repeat storyline to me. I do enjoy seeing Jessica, of course. I just want some new storylines between the two of them. Looking forward to hearing what others have to say in next week's episode. Also, are we going to get to see the working cow and horse competition, or is it something they'll just talk about it later? We actually get to see that in the next episode, so you don't have to just imagine it. But before we talk about the next episode, I'll share some of my own thoughts. I felt like, in a way, this episode didn't have the most interesting things to me personally, but they always deliver such good performances that they still are able to draw me in. Like, for example, I didn't really care about the Lou Jessica storyline. I mean, I was kind of hoping for more reflection to their past instead of them just, going back and forth. But I do enjoy seeing the two Michelles working together. So it's always still interesting to watch because they put so much effort into what they're presenting to us. So I still enjoyed that storyline despite it not maybe being the most interesting part of this episode. I was also kind of surprised that one of the things Lou needed to have that release was going to be her interactions with Rick, and especially the last scene with them. At the same time, it makes sense because we've seen them going from being friends and, working together to having that awkward energy because they were both running for the mayor position and now just being kind of crickets for a while. But then, her going to him and asking help, it sort of broke the ice and brought back that energy that they've had in the past. One thing I wanted to mention about Lou and Jessica was that I sort of like this maternal energy that Jessica has with Lou because we never got to see Lou with Marion, and I always felt like they were very different people. So having someone like Jessica who sort of is from Lou's world, who gets what Lou is about, is really nice to see. And while they're both adults, it still has that kind of maternal energy, but it's not that Jessica thinks that Lou is like a kid or anything like that, but just like she expects great things from her, and also she wants to know that she's proud of her and all that kind of stuff. So I do enjoy seeing them together as working partners, but also as family members. As for Katie's storyline, again, I think I said this in the last episode, but I'm not into dirt bikes, so I was kind of like, oh, am I gonna like this storyline? But thankfully, it delivered some gems. I mean, the scenes with Tim were not something I expected to happen, but then just watching them, it was pure delight, especially the scene with the tarp and, just the interaction between them when they were going over to do with the bike and, Tim telling Katie that you have to tell your mom. I just really like to see Tim in this role because Jack is usually the grandpa. So seeing Tim do something like this, it sort of reminds me like, oh yeah, he's actually a grandpa too. And I think he's a great choice for this type of plot with Katie because he kind of works in the gray area of moral. Like he's willing to do things behind people's back, but also he is aware that this is something that should be talked to, Lou. And I also think him and Money is always kind of like he always tries to find the bargain. So it's really fitting for fixing a bike. I was also talking to one of my friends about the necklace story. It seems like Katie will have it in the later episode. So I wonder if she gets hurt or bored of the bike or something like that and sells it back now that it has more value and goes to pick up the necklace back because she doesn't want to see Lou upset. The storyline I was looking mostly forward to was the storyline with Lisa. I was sort of bummed that they spoiled the Dan aspect of things with the previously on Heartland. In a way, it's like, did we need to see those scenes? I don't know. Like maybe someone doesn't remember who Dan is, or that we've actually seen him a lot of times on the show. But I just think like seeing the first minutes when they were posted, it left out with this mystery like what's Lisa looking at from her phone, and I felt like that sort of ruined the surprise in a way because the mystery isn't like revealed until a little bit later on the episode. But that's a minor detail. I don't even know what to say. I mean, Jessica Steen, I knew she was good, but just seeing her talent every time, it just blows me away. Even when she wasn't the center of the scene or she wasn't really like, I don't know how to explain it, but she was very subtle, but it was still very clear what Lisa was going through. And I just think that speaks volumes of her talent and how she's able to embody the character and the feelings and the subtlety of this type of situation. And I just hope that someone is watching and someone is giving her awards or something because this was phenomenal episode for her. Not that I'm surprised, but I'm still like surprised because it's like it's not often that we get to see her really deliver the goods on the show, unfortunately. But this is just one of those reminders why she's really valued in the business and, such an asset for the show. It was also really interesting to sort of notice that Amy was on the background in this episode. I think it's good in terms of giving more room for other characters as well, though I sort of wanted to see more of her feelings about Logan quitting maybe, but whatever. And I know she will have bigger storylines in the later episodes, so I do like the balance that she gets to rest a little bit too sometimes, because it's not realistic that everything just keeps happening to her all the time. It was also interesting to see the loft again, because I feel like we've barely seen it ever since Jessica and Tim moved in. So it was good to see new angles of the loft. Obviously we've seen it before, but like the way they've made it into Jessica and Tim's loft. So I really like those scenes with them in the loft and seeing them just being this couple who talks about their day and gets ready for bed and all that kind of domestic stuff that we usually don't get to see with them. I also really like to see Amy being challenged by a horror storyline. I feel like we'll get more of challenges coming her way in the next episode based on things they've posted from the set and then the preview for the next episode. I do enjoy seeing her struggle a little bit, even though she's the miracle girl, but just sometimes it's not so easy to, connect with the horse. So that's really refreshing to see sometimes. Seeing Jack work with Clue, it sort of allowed me to remember that, when Amy said something like, well, he's a pro to Nathan, it's like we never really got to see that. I mean, we've seen him do the cowboy stuff here and there, but I feel like we haven't really seen his glory days, because obviously when the show started, those were over. We've heard a lot of things about them, but then seeing him work with Blue, it sort of made me realize that, oh yeah, like he's actually a big legend, because we hear a lot about Tim's career in the rodeo, and obviously he has the rodeo school, but we get little glimpses of here and there of what Jack sort of used to be. So this episode reminded me of his legend status, even though he's like 100 years old, and I can't believe he's able to do any of that stuff. As for directing of this episode, I think Michelle did a great job. I especially really noticed the freshness of the directing when Amy was trying things out with Blue and the camera sort of panned from side to side, bringing this more dynamic feeling to the scene, which I think worked really well with what was going on. I'm not particularly interested in this type of like cow horse competition sort of thing, and raining and all that. But I think because it was shot so well and interestingly, it still was able to draw me in. So props for that. Anyways, those were some of my thoughts of this episode. And next, I'm gonna let you in on what's going on with the next episode. So we have episode 6 air tomorrow on November 5th. The episode is called Heat of the Moment. The synopsis says, at the competition, Amy has a run-in with an old friend that leads to heartache. Jack and Lisa prove they can be adventurous. Katie stands up for herself when Ellie and Brandon push her too far. There are parts in this episode that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Like, firstly, Amy at the competition, seeing more of Nathan, the Lisa and Jack stuff. Like, what does it mean for them to be more adventurous? Seeing more of Katie, because I enjoy her character. But what I'm not looking forward to seeing is that I think this is the episode where Amy and Caleb kiss. So you all probably know that I'm not a fan of that pairing, so I'm just gonna, hope that it's not too awkward and it doesn't go on too long, because it's gonna be hard to watch for me. But we'll talk about that more later in the next episode next week. Until then, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. Bye!